Good morning. As you all come on, I'm just going to be sitting here drinking my coffee. Hi, good morning. Good morning there. We're just waiting for some more people who I saw popped on and off. Hi, Wolf. Good morning. I think you all enter unmuted, but I can unmute you. You don't have to be muted. It's just how the settings are.
Oh yeah. Good
Hey,
morning.
good morning. How are you?
So far so good. It's
Hanging
you
in
know,
there? Hot enough at your place?
yeah. I've been in the valley, so that's even hotter.
Right. So you come back and it feels.
Yeah, 20 degrees lighter. Mm.
I know whenever we have people outside here who work outside, gardeners or some construction worker or something, and it's a hot day, and I say, "Gosh, I'm so sorry." Bring them water, and I'm so sorry that it's so hot. And they go, "Oh, you have no idea. We just came from the valley. This is fine.
Yeah, right. This is cool.
This is fine. To you, this feels hot."
Yeah. So
But
everybody okay?
in my house, everyone is okay. Yep, packing, rearranging,
Yeah.
trying to prepare for child to leave the house.
Yeah. Well, I'll still take Milo.
Thank you. I told him that. He laughed out loud. I was like, "You don't have to go to school here at home. Going to Wolf's every day."
There you go.
You won't have any food left when you get home because he will eat everything in your refrigerator. So,
Oh, he can't possibly do that.
uh, I don't know. He's 12,
Yeah.
growing quickly, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll wait a couple minutes and get started.
Okay.
And for some reason, I can't seem to highlight my own image, which is preferable for our stream on the website. I'll be right back. I'm going to go see if I can do it
Sure.
because for some reason it's not letting me. I have not left.
Good morning. Whoops.
Oh, good morning, Mary. How are you?
Good. How are you, Wolf?
Oh, good. I'm chewing breakfast. I don't think anybody wants to see that.
I got through that.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Mary. I was off trying to figure out why I can't spotlight my own video, and for some reason I can't. So it means that on our stream on the website, I can't force it to just be my face. But I think it's okay because we're not on Facebook, so it's just if anyone's literally watching us right now on the website. Usually I control it so that way if you guys talk, your faces aren't coming in, but I think it's okay.
It's fine.
I think we can do it that way. What time did they come on? Hi, Jeremy. Good to see you. Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
There's pictures here.
too.
I'm on Zoom. Yeah. Jude.
No, we haven't started yet.
Nope, we haven't started
No.
quite yet. And you're welcome to all say hello to each other now. I'll mute everyone once I start. But this isn't a musical Shabbat morning. We're going to do a little bit of a Torah study, so there'll be more opportunities to chat, less watching and more talking. Maybe. I hope. If you have something to say. I think in this strange time, we're all slowly having less and less to say.
That's true.
What are you talking
How
about?
are you becomes a very difficult question to answer.
Right, and most of them are like, you know,
There's
Good.
Walton and Joan,
hello. Hello, hello.
but they're muted.
That's right. Everyone's muted as they come in. That's just a setting on. Hi, Lori.
Oh,
Good to
okay.
see you.
Everyone's sleeping here.
Oh, well, don't yell.
I have earbuds in. You can talk loud. I have to be quiet.
I overslept today. I actually went to bed early and I slept long. And so I told Andy when I woke up, I have that feeling like jet lag when you feel like you slept too much or you wake up and you go, well, what happened? Which is okay. All right, so maybe we'll begin, everybody. So, good morning. So far, when I've done these, like one was like a little mini Shabbat with a Torah service, one was all music. So today I thought we would do a little more of a Torah study together, a little less musical and a little more just learning together, which is fine and great. And so we're going to just start with, oh, hi, more people popping on. Hello, fellow multi-poo lover, now logging in onto Zoom. Okay, so good morning, and I think we'll just jump right in. I will do a Shabbat Torah blessings and go right into what our Torah portion is for this week, because I thought it was particularly interesting considering what's going on in the world. And so I'm just going to grab the Torah blessings so I have them up on a screen for you, if I can do it right. There we go. You see those okay? Fantastic. So we'll start right away. I have my talit on. I feel like I'm ready to go to do a little Torah. I even have the Torah next to me. So even though it won't open, I feel like I'm sort of doing a real Torah reading. It's going to be here next to me. And so here we go. And you're feel free to be unmuted. And if you sing, it'll cut in and out with each other, but that's okay. It's kind of a beautiful cacophony through Zoom. I'm learning. I have a group of students that are post studies, but are doing a check-in for bar and bat mitzvahs because they are postponing their services. So I have them doing like via Havta all together. I say, just unmute and do it. And it's actually this really adorable sound of like voices popping in and out of all singing the stuff at the same time. And it sort of makes sense. And yet if you know what's happening, it makes total sense. So here we go. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu. And this is actually something we switch with my students. Im kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Thank you, Lori. Right in there.
I'm trained.
It is fantastic. And so let me share a different screen so that you'll be able to, oh, that's not right. Now it looks like you're staring at yourself. Hold on. I'm going to get good at this, I promise.
What's the switch? What was the switch? What did that mean?
What do you mean, the switch?
The word switch.
Oh, did it say switch?
No, you switched a word with your students in the prayer.
Oh, you can see if Florian remembers. So in the Torah blessing and in Kiddush, it says Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, who chose us from other nations. And so with each one of my students, we end up having a long conversation about what does it feel like to be chosen from another nation, and how is like the idea of chosenness something that can be seen in a really beautiful and healthy light. Like I love my family, and just because I love my family doesn't mean I think the family next door to me is awful. It just means that I am grateful that I'm part of mine. Or does that make you feel uncomfortable? Are you from an interfaith family? Is saying that you're separated from another nation not feel authentic for you? And if so, there's this great renewal rabbi that pointed out that if you just change mikol ha'amim, which is from other nations, to imkol ha'amim, with other nations, so you're chosen with other nations, that it doesn't take away the blessing everyone knows. It makes a tiny shift, but it changes the essence of what you're saying. So I always give them the choice and tell them there's no right answer. You can hold on to tradition, or you can innovate in that way, and it has to be what's authentic for you. And they each choose their own way, which is kind of cool, because if you go to a Reconstructionist synagogue, it's different words. So if you grew up in a Reform or conservative synagogue, you go and you go, just think, I don't know how that goes. All right, so I'm going to chant just a little bit of this morning's portion, and then we're actually going to look at a summary. So you can all see the words and the translation in front of you. And I'm going to try to sing it because I was renewing Haftarah trope in my brain this morning, which meant Torah trope went out of my head. It's very hard for me to click from one to the other. Shoftim v'shoterim titen lecha bechol sha'arecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha lishpatecha v'shafatu et ha'am mishpat tzedek lo tateh mishpat lo takir panim Velo tikach shochad ki there we go hashochad ye'aver einei chachamim v'salev divrei tzadikim tzedek tzedek tirdof leman tichye le'veyarashta et haaretz Asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. I almost sang Haftarah Trop, but I caught myself. And so now I'm going to skip back to the other screen so we can do the after blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher
Hashem
banu
Torat Emet
v'chayei olam atah Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai
Amen.
So this week's Torah portion is really interesting because there's a lot of famous quotes in there. I don't know if you heard me chant, Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof is something that is used all the time. Justice, justice shall you pursue. And this week's Torah portion is called Judges, and it's about government and fairness. And so in this time in history, I don't know if you were all like me, glued to the television for the last few days, watching the Democratic National Convention, and I promised my daughter and I promised we're going to watch the other one too.
Mhm.
We're going to see
Wow.
what it says. So I thought we might read this summary together just to get an idea of not just that little section I chanted, but of everything that's happening in this Torah portion together. And I can read some, but I don't have to. So if any of you wanted to read, you could I don't know, raise your hand and you could read some as well. I feel like I'm in class with my students. So we'll start with this. Moses continues his last speech to the Israelites before he dies, saying, "Judges shall be appointed to judge the people with justice. You shall not twist judgment by recognizing a face or accepting bribery, because both blind the eyes of the wise and cause the words of the righteous to falter. Justice, justice shall you pursue, so that you may live and take possession of the land which God, your God, is giving you. Do not make a memorial stone for God. No, offer to God a blemished animal for sacrifice." We're going to watch a little video. It's great. It's got a cow with a big pimple on its face. "If you find an individual who does evil in the eyes of God and transgresses God's covenant, then you shall make careful inquiry. If it turns out to be true according to the word of 2 or 3 witnesses, then that person shall die. No one shall be put to death on the basis of the word of only 1 witness. If the matter is too difficult for you to decide between blood and blood, between right and right, between damage and damage, then you shall come to the priests for judgment." Does anyone else want to read, or I'll keep going? I don't mind. I don't know if you can see it clearly enough.
I'll do it.
Go for it. Thank you.
Moses then says, when you come to the land that God is giving you and dwell in it, you will want a king. You shall then set a king over yourself who God will choose. This king shall, it's getting blurry. This king,
I thought I was going to get better. Did I make it worse?
it's barely readable, but I can do it.
There you
Okay.
go.
That's
Is that
better.
better? Okay. I thought I was making it better. I made it worse.
Just stop me whenever you want to. This king shall not be a foreigner, but one of your brethren. This king must not have many horses, nor many wives, nor amass silver and gold for himself in excess, so that his heart may not go astray. Rather, when he sits upon the throne, he shall write for himself a duplicate of this teaching in a book. He shall read from it as long as he shall live, so that he may learn to fear God and not lift himself above his brethren, nor turn aside from the commandments.
I'll move this up.
Oh, I keep going, or
You can, sure.
okay, then I gotta move you. You want to move the window?
I'm working on it.
Well, thank you. The priests, the Levites, all the tribe of Levi shall have no portion or inheritance. They shall eat the fire offerings to God, the first of your grain and oil, and drink your new wine, because God chose this tribe to serve in the name of God forever. When you are in the land that God is giving you, do not learn their evil ways. You shall have no one among you pass your son or daughter through fire, nor listen to soothsayers, interpreters of omens, sorcerers, or charmers. These are abominations to God. Moses continues saying, a prophet from among your brethren, like myself, will God raise up for you. To him you shall hearken. Then God will put words into this prophet's mouth so that he may speak to the people. But if the prophet speaks wantonly in God's name or speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die. And if you ask, how can we recognize the word that God has not spoken? If it is spoken in the name of God and does not come true, then God has not spoken that word, and the prophet has spoken it wantonly. Wantonly, you shall not be afraid of him. And we need to scroll. So
I'm scrolling.
when you dwell in the promised land, you shall separate out 3 cities, and they shall serve as refuge for murderers. These cities are only for the murderer who kills his neighbor unintentionally and without hate. For in the heat of the moment, this murderer could be killed even though the initial crime was an accident. This will prevent innocent blood from being shed in the promised land. Do not move your boundary marker of your neighbor from those set by inheritance. The testimony of one witness shall not stand against a person with regard to any crime or offense or sin that may have been committed. Only through a testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses may a case be established. If a pair of witnesses misuse their power and are false witnesses, then you shall cause to happen what was planned for the sinner. In this way, you clear away the evil from your midst. Your eye must not have pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. When you go forth in battle against a stronger enemy, do not be afraid, for God who brought you out of Egypt is with you. The officers shall speak to the people, saying, if there is a man that has a new home, a new wife, or a new vineyard, let him return home. Let him who is afraid and faint-hearted go home too, so as not to inspire cowardliness in other soldiers. What?
You're getting close.
No, I'm not. When you approach a city, I mean, anybody else can jump in, fine, but I'm not getting hoarse.
This is instead of your usual Torah reading at Rosh Hashanah. It's like we just need to hear Joan do
You
Torah.
have to do this, yes.
Yeah.
When you approach a city to wage war, you must first offer peace. If the answer is peace, then the entire population shall serve you. If peace is rejected, then you shall battle against them, and God will deliver them to you. Then you shall kill all the males, but the women and children and animals and all the booty shall be your spoils. However, of the cities that God is giving you as an inheritance, you shall not allow a soul to remain alive, so that they will not teach you abominations practiced for their gods. Do not destroy the food trees in the cities captured. Eat of them, but do not cut them down. You may cut down non-food trees. If the slain person is found fallen in the field, you must find the city closest to the slain man, and the elders of that city shall sacrifice a young calf, and blessings by the priests shall be made over it. The elders shall then say prayers for atonement. You must put away the innocent blood from your midst by doing that which is right in the eyes of God.
Thank you.
So what is this from?
This is some, pardon?
Oh, there it is.
There's some questions down here. It's my Jewish Learning, which offers really excellent summaries. That's why I always start with my students is read the summary first and then see what part is most interesting to them. And then we go to the Torah and we read everything about the part that they want to really look at and focus on, so they don't get too exhausted with too much biblical language if they read the whole thing word for word. And so what's interesting about that Torah portion to me, especially now, and I'll put it to you, well, first of all, it's sort of the progressive Jew's dream, except for a couple things. Like, there are a couple things in there still, like any Torah portion, you know, some Torah portions, the entire thing makes you go, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? And then some of them are like a little mix, and this one has like so much stuff that as a progressive Jew, we're like, yeah, this is why we're Jewish. And then there's a few in there you go, oh, except for that part maybe that's not exactly what we mean. But that's normal for Torah. That's what Torah is. That's why they call it wrestling with the Torah, because it's not just this like clear and beautiful perfection. It's things that you have to like and fight with and battle with. And as I always say to my students, like, we're really lucky because our book doesn't have a bunch of angels flying around in perfection that we have to try to live up to. We have like real people with real problems and terrible family relationships, and our job is to say, how are these stories supposed to help us lead better lives? And it's not always because we do exactly what they did. It's like, maybe we don't do that one because that one didn't maybe prevent the earthquake. That could be good. So, so I just wanted to put it to you right away of like, what do you see in there? What are some of those things in here? Some very famous passages that either you react to as something that felt really true to you, or something that you might wrestle with.
No, he's not describing a democracy.
That's true. Not describing a democracy. And yet, what's important about the king?
That God appoints him.
Well, yes, but also that the king shouldn't have too much stuff.
That's,
It
yeah.
should be someone from wealth coming up and becoming the king. That it's someone who's at least living some sort of modest life, which is interesting considering current circumstance.
Very relevant.
That your king shouldn't be too into stuff and have too much stuff. It's just something to ponder. I'm not saying anyone. I'm just saying in general, leader has too much stuff. Sometimes they get a little bit corrupted. I can put the portion back on if you wanted to peek at it.
Yeah, where did you say it came from?
Oh,
again?
it's my Jewish Learning.
Maybe I'll just pull it up on my bigger screen.
Yeah, sure. It's a terrific website for all kinds of things. It's particularly excellent for these summaries of the Torah portion because they're detailed enough that it's rare that you read it and go, oh, you missed something big. Sometimes you do, so you have to look it up and make sure. But especially for students, it gives them a really complete idea of what happened in a page or two instead of 20 pages of translation of biblical Hebrew, which is harder to judge through. So, I mean, we have this idea simply just of justice shall you pursue, and what does that mean, and how do we interpret that? And the idea that you can't be convicted if one person says you did something, but that you have to have 2 or 3 that have the same story, has to be corroborated. I thought one of the most interesting things in here, and we talked about the king, who can't have too many horses or wives or silver or gold in excess. That's an interesting description. Wives, gold, silver.
And besides besides having a king,
Michael?
besides having a king who doesn't have a gold throne, literally, if we're going to be rulers over ourselves, perhaps we shouldn't have too many things.
Absolutely. Right. So beyond the king, what if you're just the leader of an office, classroom, county? You're right.
But
Just your own house.
But the king is as metaphor for ruling over yourself. I like that. I like that. I like that.
Why we keep Michael around?
Yeah.
He's all the good stuff.
That's good.
And of course, we have the priests and the Levites that are going to be in charge of the temple, that they have basically nothing, that they are going to live off of what offerings are brought to sustain them, so that they never are doing it for any of the wrong reasons, unless the people bring them some really good stuff, I suppose. And to continue down, the prophet part is always interesting. It's something that always creates a little tension when you read about it, because, the punishment for a prophet coming and leading you away from God is definitely death. And of course, then it has to ask you, if you're searching, if you're looking for a spiritual connection and you find it in another place, then that's the part in the Torah now that we have to wrestle a little bit about what it says and what. And as I always say to my students, imagine you lived back then. What were they going for? What was the effect they were trying to have? And is that now true for you living in West Los Angeles? Or is there a variation on what it says now that you live in modern times? So that's always an interesting chat. This is the part that really struck me in a way about these 3 cities, and that if you have a person who kills someone by mistake, in the Torah portion itself, the complete Torah portion, I'm trying to remember the example. I think it says if you go out to chop wood, something like that, and you let go of the handle, and the handle hits somebody, and they get hit, and so they die, that's the example they give. You've gone out with an axe and you let go and it flies out of your hand and it hits this other guy in the head and he dies. And so you've killed him. But it was totally by accident. It was not intentional in any way, but that the family may be rageful. The family wants revenge. So what happens? You've literally created a city where they go and wait for everyone to cool off. Just separate. It's like a classroom where you go like, we're just gonna, everyone needs time.
Time out.
Yeah, time out, exactly. You go to this corner, you go to this corner, let everyone calm down, and then we're going to come to the center and go through a process where we can talk through what everyone felt and try to get to a point of reconciliation so that we can sit next to each other again in class and go back to the backyard. If we ever get to go back to class and go to the backyard. Let's hope so. And so I just found that really interesting, that certainly something that we don't have, a safe haven for a person to go while what this crime was is sorted out. You make sure that you have multiple witnesses and figure out the answer, and then everyone comes back together. We almost need that now, like in a political sense. We're all like so angry at each other. If everyone could just separate and calm down, try to get back to what you think is important, your family, your health, hopefully an earth to live on. Let's get back to the basics and then come back and have another conversation.
I have a question that's just a logistic question. When you read a Torah portion, isn't it usually really short? And then this summary is really long, so I'm confused.
No, Torah portion is long. Now, most synagogues go by the triennial cycle, which is that you read a third of it. So you read the first third in 1 year, you read the second third the next year, and you read the last third the third year to shorten up the Torah portion. But you can still study the entire portion. And if it's short, then that's just because they're choosing a much shorter amount to do. Because the third is still long.
So like when a kid does his bar mitzvah portion, it's just usually a shortened portion.
Yeah. If you are, in all the Reform synagogues I know, or at Shul, it's an amount that we choose of how long it's going to be. In a conservative synagogue, they would do the maftir. They would do the last part of the Torah portion. It's usually a repeated part, and it's much shorter, and then they do haftarah. And they don't really spend much time on Torah at all. Most of the progressive synagogues now, the kids really focus on Torah.
Mm-hmm.
They do more Torah. They do no haftarah or a little bit of haftarah, depending on what's going on. But this is the entire Torah portion for this week.
Okay.
Yeah. And the last part that is interesting here, again, a progressive Jew's dream. If you're going into wage war, first you offer peace. And only if they say no to the peace, then you deal. Now, how you deal, we can discuss that afterwards, about what happens afterwards and how the Torah says to go about this battle. But at least the idea of at least entering in the idea of peace and offering a hand of peace, again, is something easy for us to grab onto and feel like we can really hold on to this Torah as our own this week. And I also always love this one, not to destroy the fruit trees in the city. You don't take away the food supply for anyone. You leave the trees there. You make sure that you're going to be able to eat them. If it doesn't have fruit, you need to build a house. Knock it down. You build the house. You build the fort. Whatever you need to do with the wood, but you leave the fruit. You make sure that there's food there for people to come and take. So I thought I would also share, just because it's fun, and so that you can see the cow with the big zit on his face. I use these videos a lot, these Godcast videos. They're really cute. And, they're actually not really intended for children. Some of them even say only to be seen by people over the age of 12 or 13. It's funny because the website has now turned into like a children's site. So all their new videos are much more geared to like a 6-year-old. But the original ones, the Torah ones, I love. And I love showing this to my students when we're picking their Torah portion, especially because sometimes there's a choice, or sometimes their families want them to just choose what they want to study. So we go through these videos, and it's a great way for them to dig into a little bit of Torah in a way that's super accessible and kind of fun. So I'll show you this week's Torah.
At Mount Sinai, God called upon the Jewish people to be a holy people, partners with God in creating a world of justice for all. In PARSHAT SHOFTIM, which means judges, they're now on the banks of the Jordan, almost at the promised land, when God tells the Israelites to appoint judges and police officers so they can begin to administer
Don't know what.
this justice.
There we go.
God's final instruction to them is among the Torah's most famous lines, Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, or justice, justice shall you pursue. Why justice, justice shall you pursue? The second justice must have some meaning. Some say justice is repeated for emphasis, to teach that pursuing justice is among the most important things a person can do. Others say that it's repeated to teach that we must be just in the way we go about our pursuit of justice. Here in Shoftim, we learn about 5 kinds of justice. First, God gives the Israelites a lengthy list of instructions about what they can and cannot do when they worship. They can't plant a tree or build a monument near God's altar, and they aren't allowed to sacrifice any animal that has a blemish. Above all, they're warned not to worship idols or intentionally break God's law because the punishment is death. Addressing the second form of justice, God tells the children of Israel that when they arrive in the promised land, if they really want, they can be like other nations around them and appoint a king. Criteria for qualified royalty are pretty strict. The king must be from their own nation, must not keep in excess of horses, wives, silver, or gold. In addition, the king must write his own Torah scroll and read it regularly to remind him to follow its laws. And he must rule fairly, treating all people alike, no matter how rich or poor they are. For the third form of justice, God tells the children of Israel to create cities of refuge in the promised land. If the person accidentally kills someone, he or she can flee to these cities and be safe from relatives of the dead who might seek revenge. But if someone intentionally commits murder and tries to escape into the city of refuge, the elders of that city are to send him or her directly into the hands of the vengeful family. Carrying on with the theme of crime, the fourth part of PARSHAT SHOFTIM covers witnesses and testimony. In order for testimony to be valid, not one, but 2 witnesses must give the exact same testimony. If it is discovered that 2 witnesses got together to make up false testimony, the Torah says to rid the city of that evil, in this case to kick out the false witnesses. In another famous line, the Israelites are told not to have compassion for them, a life for a life, an eye for an eye, and so on, to scare the daylights out of others who might have been considering providing false testimony of their own. The fifth and final form of justice is about the rules of warfare. God tries to comfort the Israelites, telling them not to be fearful or faint-hearted when they go out to war, even outnumbered by their enemies. Easier said than done. But officers were also to protect the lives of soldiers who had a lot to lose or a lot of living left to do, by telling their armies, whoever has built a new house but hasn't lived in it yet, go home. Whoever has planted a vineyard and hasn't picked the fruit yet, you go home. And whoever is engaged to a woman but hasn't married her yet, you can go home too. For 3,000 years, the command, justice, justice shall you pursue, has defined who the Jewish people are and what they're about, especially today, in the face of the critical need to ensure justice on issues like environmental devastation, economic injustice, genocidal activity around the globe. This call warns us. We dare not wait for opportunities to do justice, but rather must act assertively to address the great moral issues of our time. That is our heritage. May we prove worthy.
Nice.
They're cute
That was very cute.
and oddly educational. They're cute and oddly educational. So I thought I would also share with you, get it back up here, just a mini commentary that I grabbed from Rabbi Noah Farkas. This is actually his commentary from last year. He has an email that comes out each week with writings about the week's Torah portion. This one was all different because it was about coronavirus. But I actually picked this one from last year because it seemed to fit in, less about health and more about politics and our role in it. And so I just grabbed one little paragraph from it. Justice is holiness. Justice is infinite. The Torah's idea of justice asks more of us than any other. Its ultimatums are unceasing. Just as you are made in God's image, endowed with a soul of infinite worth, so too are God's demands of you to fight for a world of infinite justice. Your outer world must comport with your inner world, and your life outside must be reflected by your inner life. When you see another in pain or hear another cry, an infinite soul makes its claim on you. When you accuse another of a crime and you do so out of a call for justice, the defendant's soul still makes a claim upon you to treat them with dignity worthy of God. What the Torah cares about is your entire life, the good, the bad, embarrassing, and the celebrated. This is what makes justice sacred, that both the innocent and the guilty, the powerful and the powerless, are all held up to God's light. The Torah was written for you, and what God wants for your life is to live in the light of justice. Justice, justice shall you pursue forever and always.
Nice.
I just thought it was lovely. And I just saw your text, Mary, and I missed it. I'm sorry. I just saw your message and I didn't get it in time.
That's okay.
And so, every Torah portion has a Haftarah portion that is connected to it. And this week's Haftarah portion is Isaiah. I feel like it's always Isaiah. Every Haftarah portion seems like it's always Isaiah. And it's connected because of a theme of judges and judgment that I recall. But the reason, what I picked from it, except right now I can't find my blessings. Yes, here they are, because we'll actually do those blessings. That to me, this Haftarah has like a wake-up call in it. It goes like with all the inspiration you get about reading about justice and fairness and witnesses and all the things that we should do for fairness in the world. And then the Haftarah has, again, these incredibly famous sets of text in it that to me feels like a bonk on the head for us to do the work that we feel comfortable doing, especially in this time with COVID-19 out there, that we have to do justice the way we're comfortable to doing it and the way it's safe doing it, but to do as much as we can, especially in these days leading up to an election. So we'll do this Haftarah blessing, and then I'll show you the portion of the text that I chose. Here we go. And this actually Haftarah trope. So if you don't know what Haftarah trope sounds like, you kind of know what Torah sounds like. This blessing is done to Haftarah trope. And these little marks that you might see above and below is telling me how to sing it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo Yisrael amo, uvinviei ha'emet v'tzedek. And here are the two sections of Isaiah that are this week's Haftarah portion that I chose so that you can see the translation of what I'm singing. Okay, and clicking into Haftarah trope brain. Hitoriri, hitoriri, kumi Yerushalayim, asher shatit, miyad Adonai et kos chamato, et kubat kos hatarela shatit mahatzit. Uri uri livshi uzech Zion Lishi Bigdei Tifartei Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh Ki Lo Yosif Yavo Vachod Arel V'Tamei Hitna'ari Me'afar Kumi Shivi Yerushalayim Hitpatechi Mosrei Savarech Shivia Bat Zion. And so the words rouse, rouse yourself, arise, Jerusalem, you who from God's hand have drunk the cup of his wrath, who have drained to the dregs the bowl, the cup of reeling. Awake, awake, Zion, clothe yourself in splendor, put on your robes of majesty, Jerusalem, holy city, for the uncircumcised and the unclean shall never enter you again. Arise, shake off the dust, sit on your throne, Jerusalem, loose the bonds from your neck, O captive one, fair Zion. Now, again, the text, especially like if I'm with students, younger ones, like, what? That's a little too much. But the awaking and the waking, the rising, rouse yourself, wake up, wake up. Twice in here, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then we get into the part that's like, okay, we're going to have to like deal with that inside. But the shaking off your dust, the sitting up, the remembering of who you are, at least that's how I'm taking it this week for myself, in spite of what's going in light of what's going on in the world. I don't know if any of you have a thought or comment about what that
Trunk of his wrath.
bigger.
Range.
See if I can make it bigger. There, a little larger. So I mean, the Haftarah is so much calling to the people and telling them what they did wrong, how they're veering from the path, and how they've got to get back. You got to get back. You got to get back. Like that's the job of these prophets, is to lead you back home. And so what is home? And I think the reason why this is speaking to me so much is in a time when we all feel so tired and so worn out from having to deal with so much, and yet there's so much at stake. It's like, how do you like sort of slap yourself in the face a little bit and get up and keep working? And I think it's really hard in this time to just keep moving and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And, you know, maybe one foot in front of the other is all we can ask for at this point. But I don't know. I needed that Haftarah. And I just like the sound of Haftarah. It's beautiful, and we don't actually do it that often. And it was lovely to hear the chanting of it. And so the blessing, the dreaded blessing for students, because it's so long and they're done with their studies and they're like, there's another thing. The blessing for after the Haftarah reading, to close that. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah v'al ha'nevim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lichavod ultifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umvarachim otach, yiparach shimcha, befi kol chai tami li'olam va'ed, baruch ata Adonai, mekahadesh hashabbat. And I thought I would just close our time together with a song that we've done at Holy Days. We're actually doing it again at Holy Days because I have videos going of our choir with all the little tiles of them singing. I've learned a new skill through the Holy Days. How to make choir videos with different people singing and sending me all kinds of tracks and putting it all together. And so this is a song by cantor Linda Hirshhorn, who's up in Northern California, called Circle Chant, and it goes like this. It goes with our themes for today. Circle round for freedom. Circle around for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Shabbat Shalom, guys.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
As always, while I'm